Hello everyone, welcome again to my channel, Yam Heam TV 25. Please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much. Magellan's expedition paved the way for Spain's expansion to the Orient. Driven by the trail of adventure and the reward of gold and spiritual dispensation, the conquistadores took the risks of the journey. So now we're going to tackle about the other Spanish expeditions. The first post-Magellan expedition was the Loaiza expedition in 1525. It was led by Captain Garcia Joffre de Loaiza, who sailed with 7 ships and 450 men. After crossing the Strait of Magellan, the vessels were dispersed by a storm. Unfortunately, Loaiza got ill. They served him boiled rat, the traditional treatment for constipation. He did not recover. Eventually, he died. His men failed to reach the Philippines. After the Loaiza expedition failed, another expedition was sent into the Orient. It is the Cabot expedition in 1526. It was led by Sebastian Cabot, the son of Venetian explorer John Cabot. They sailed with 4 ships and 250 men, but they failed to find the Strait of Magellan. Another expedition was sent after Cabot. It was the Saavedra expedition in 1527. It was led by Alvaro Saavedra Cerón, the cousin of Hernando Cortes of Mexico. They sailed together with 110 men, constituted the first expedition to the Philippines from the Viceroyalty in Mexico, or New Spain. 3 ships were sent out to investigate what had happened to the 2 earlier expeditions and rescue any survivors. Only 1 ship, the Florida, reached Surigao and northeastern Mindanao but failed to colonize. They were able to rescue several survivors from the first 2 expeditions in Tidore, Moluccas. Loaded with spices, the Florida attempted to return to Spain but strong winds drove her back. Saavedra Cerón tried the second and third time to sail against strong winds. He fell ill and died. His successor also failed to make a return trip. Finally, they decided to surrender to the Portuguese. In 1542, King Charles I sent another expedition. This was to reassert the claims of Spain to the islands, which is part of the Eastern Hemisphere. Based on the Treaty of Tordesillas of 1494, the Eastern Hemisphere was reserved to Portuguese colonization. Yang blue na mga kulay na makikita natin, ayan yung mga lugar na kung saan ito ay sakop ng Portugal. Samantalang, yang may marka na pula, ayan naman yung sakop ng Espanya. So yan yung during sa Treaty of Tordesillas. However, with the Treaty of Saragossa in 1529, a new demarcation line was fixed at 297.5 leagues east of the Moluccas. Portugal gained the rights of ownership over all the lands on the west of the line, while Spain gained the right of ownership over all the lands found on the east of the line. Spain sold the Moluccas to Portugal for 350,000 gold ducats, which lay within the Portuguese sphere of influence and claimed ownership over the Philippines, then known as Islas del Poniente, the Sunset Islands. He instructed Ruy Lopez de Villalobos to command a fleet of 6 ships and other 400 men. He exhorted Villalobos to avoid any of the Spice Islands in their voyage to Islas del Poniente. Villalobos reached Baganga Bay in eastern Mindanao on February 2, 1543 after 3 months of sailing. He named Mindanao Caesarea Caroli, or the Imperial Island of Charles. Searching for food, they reached the southern island of Sarangani, which Villalobos renamed Antonia in honor of Viceroy Antonio de Mendoza of Mexico. Ito po yung lugar ng Balut Island ngayon. Some of his men went as far as Leyte, which they renamed Filipina, in honor of the future King Philip II of Spain. Later, the name Filipinas was given to all the islands. Villalobos also failed to colonize Mindanao. He died in the Moluccas, consoled by Saint Francis Xavier, acclaimed as the Apostle of the Indies. King Charles I of Spain abdicated his royal crown after getting weary of far-ranging duties brought about by his scattered dominion. So, bumaba siya ng kanyang trono because of disappointment. So, his son Philip II succeeded as ruler of the Netherlands in 1555 and Spain in 1556. During the reign of King Philip II, Spain was at the height of its power. He wrote to Mexican Viceroy Velasco ordering him to prepare an expedition for the conquest of the Philippines. The command of this expedition was given to Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, a soldier, lawyer, and an administrator. Since the Mexican government was then in the brink of bankruptcy, Legazpi spent his own resources to finance the expedition. So now let's talk about the Legazpi expedition in 1564. So Legazpi and his fleet, consisting of 4 ships with 380 men, left Natividad, Mexico on November 19, 1564. Some say November 20 and others November 21. So besides royal officials and crew, 5 Augustinian friars joined the expedition. Legazpi was accompanied by Father Andres de Urdaneta, the survivor of the Loaiza expedition, and Captain Felipe de Salcedo, Legazpi's grandson and brother of Juan de Salcedo, Guido de Labisares, the survivor of the Villalobos expedition, and Melchor de Legazpi, Legazpi's son. The fleet stopped in Guam, and there they obtained fresh water and supplies. On February 13, 1565, Legazpi and his men anchored near the island of Cebu. Due to Cebuano opposition, they sailed to the neighboring islands and landed in Samar. Legazpi made a blood compact with Urao, a friendly chief, on February 22. They proceeded to Limasawa and were received by a young chieftain named Bangkao. Later, Legazpi landed in Bohol and befriended 2 native kings, Si Katuna and Sigala. On March 16, 1565, Legazpi and Si Katuna made a blood compact. A few days later, Legazpi and Gala did a similar pact. On April 27, 1565, Legazpi arrived in Cebu and hit the shore. Rahat Tupas and his Cebuano warriors challenged the enemy forces but were overpowered by the Spaniards. Soon, the natives burned their houses and retreated to the uplands. The next day, April 28, one of the Legazpi's men, a Greek sailor named Mermeo, or others say Juan de Camus, discovered the image of Santo Niño in one of the houses. Viewing it as a sign of God's approval, Legazpi named the first settlement Ciudad del Santísimo Nombre de Jesus, or City of the Most Holy Name of Jesus, in honor of the sacred image. It was the same statue given by Magellan to Queen Juana in 1521. This statue can be found in the present Augustinian Church of the Holy Child. The earliest Spanish settlement was in the form of a triangle. The 2 sides faced the sea and the third fronts the land. The settlement was surrounded by fences. Wells were dug for the stable water supply. A church for the Augustinian fathers was erected. In this church, the historic image of the child Jesus was kept. One day, a soldier, Pedro de Arana, went out alone from the camp. He was spared to death. In retaliation, a unit was sent to grab captives. One of them, a niece of Rahat Tupas of Cebu. Upon learning this, Legazpi sent her nursemaid to inform Rahat Tupas that the hostages were free to go home, on the condition that he had to come for a talk. Rahat Tupas did not heed the invitation of Legazpi, but Tamuyan, the girl's father, came with 6 men. Tamuyan offered himself as a slave in the place of his daughter, but Legazpi assured him the freedom of his daughter without making him subservient to the Spaniards. The father was stunned to see his daughter dressed as befitted her rank. He knew that captives taken in a war were not given noble treatment. Moved by their kind-heartedness, Tamuyan accepted Legazpi's friendship. He promised to convince his brother Tupas to accept Spanish goodwill. After a few more days, convinced that Legazpi was sincere with his words, Rahat Tupas accepted Legazpi's friendship. Legazpi tried to win Rahat Tupas and the people of Cebu through the policy of attraction, inviting them to return, rebuild their homes, and live in peace with them. The Cebuanos paid yearly tribute to the King of Spain and recognized him as their king. Legazpi promised Spanish protection. Next is the conquest of the other islands. Because of a food shortage in Cebu, Legazpi moved to Panay in 1569. At first, the Filipinos in Panay were very hostile to the Spaniards. But Legazpi and the Spanish missionaries won them over by means of wisdom and friendship. Panay became the next Spanish military base in the Philippines. Also in 1569, Masbate, Ticao, and Burias were captured by the Spaniards. They penetrated as far as Albay in the Bicol region. In Masbate, the Spanish priest was so successful in preaching Christianity that he kept the island peaceful with only 6 soldiers to help him. In 1570, the Filipino, Muslim or Moro villages and forts at Mindoro in the nearby islets of Ilim and Lubang were destroyed. The fall of Mindoro brought the invaders closer to Manila. Next is the battle for Manila. At that time, Manila was a rich Muslim kingdom. The Spaniards decided to conquer this important outpost. It took 2 battles in 1570 and 1571 to capture Manila. At first, Raja Sulaiman, the Filipino-Moro king of Manila, resisted the Spanish invaders. The first Spanish expedition to invade Manila was led by Marshal Martin de Goite in May 1570. He led 120 Spaniards and 600 Visayan warriors. After a fierce battle, Goite won against Sulaiman. He also captured the Filipino cannons made by Panday Pira, a Pampangueño blacksmith. This made it harder for the Filipinos to fight the foreigners. However, Goite could not hold the place and returned to Panay to regroup. In 1571, another Spanish invasion of Manila was personally led by Legazpi himself. Sulaiman wanted to fight the invaders again, but his old uncle Lacandula of Tondo persuaded him to befriend them instead, because they did not want to sacrifice any more Filipino lives to a lost cause. Sulaiman and Lacandula decided to accept Spanish rule. They knew they could not win against the superior weapons and military power of Spain. However, some Filipino rulers of Hagonoy, Macabebe, and nearby barangays did not want to give up easily. They met at Nabotas and decided to attack the foreigners. They were led by Bambalito, a stubborn Macabebe warrior. On June 3, 1571, Bambalito led his fleet of war boats to fight the Spanish Navy. The naval battle happened at Bangkusay Channel near the Tondo shore. This was really the first battle of Manila Bay. It was a historic battle because it opened the way for the Spanish conquest of Manila and the whole of Luzon. The battle at Manila Bay was fierce and bloody. The Spaniards led by Marshal Goite won the battle. The Filipinos lost because of 3 reasons. First, Lacandula and Sulaiman did not help the other Filipinos. Kasi nga, they have already decided na makipagkaibigan na lang sa mga Spaniards. Second, the Spaniards had superior weapons and discipline. And lastly, about 600 Cebuano archers helped the Spaniards in the battle. About 500 Filipinos were taken prisoner that day. After the battle, the Spaniards took over Manila. On June 24, 1571, Legazpi proclaimed Manila as the new capital of the colony. He rebuilt it from a Moro kingdom to a Spanish city, with Spanish homes, churches, and a fort. King Philip II gave it a new coat of arms and a new name, distinguished and ever loyal city, or insignia is siempre Leal Ciudad. But the old name of Manila continued to be used. Manila means a place where there are nilad lands. Today, Manila is the capital of the Philippines, and June 24th is celebrated as the founding day of the city. Next is the Conquest of Luzon. From Manila, Spanish rule spread to other parts of Luzon. In many places in Luzon, Filipinos put up a strong resistance to the Spanish invasion. It seems, however, that God was on the side of the Spaniards who wanted to bring the Christian religion to the Philippines. In Cainta and Taytay, the Filipinos refused to surrender to the Spanish at first. "Come and fight," they answered the Spanish challenge. "Let us see who is stronger, your Christian God or our ancestral gods." As the Spanish troops approached the barangay fort at Cainta, a Filipino warrior on top of a tall tree shouted to them, "Castillas, what did my ancestors do to you that you should come to plunder us?" Again, the fighting was very bloody. The Spaniards were outnumbered. They had only 100 soldiers and 3 big guns. But, alas, the Filipino defenders still lost the battle. They were simply no match against the superior Spanish military strategy and weapons. About 400 Filipinos, including women, were killed in the Battle of Cainta. The news of the fall of Cainta spread like wildfire to all the nearby barangays. It scared the people living in these areas and they decided to give up to the Spaniards. Taytay, Bay, and Liliu surrendered without a fight. The 2 rulers of Nagcarlan and Mahayhay, however, resisted the invaders. But like the other places, they too fell to the Spaniards. Captain Juan de Salcedo, Legazpi's grandson, captured Laguna, Ilocos, Bicol, and Catanduanes. Marshal Goite captured Pampanga. By the end of the 16th century, the Spanish invaders had effectively conquered Luzon and Visayas. Only Mindanao, Sulu, and the interior mountain regions remained under the control of the Filipinos. But practically speaking, the battle for the Philippines was over. The Spaniards had won. So why the Philippines fell to Spain? So alamin natin ang mga rason kung bakit nga ba nahulog tayo sa kamay ng mga Espanyol. First, the Filipinos at the time of the arrival of Legazpi were not united. They were divided into different tribes under their own kings or chieftains. The Spaniards took advantage of the disunity of the Filipinos. They played one tribe against another. For example, the Cebuano archers helped the Spaniards win the Battle of Bancusay. Second, the Spanish invaders had a great commander in Legazpi. He won the friendship of the Filipino kings with his generosity and wisdom. He did not abuse them and treated them with kindness, unlike other Spanish rulers later. Third, although the Filipinos were brave and persistent, they could not win the battle against the superior military arms and know-how of the Spaniards. The Spanish conquistadores had the advanced technology of the West at that time. They fought with bigger cannons, muskets, swords, and metal armor. The Filipino warriors only had bronze cannons, crude swords, daggers, lances, and wooden bows and arrows. And fourth, the Filipinos were won over by the Spanish missionaries who thought them a better religion than the barbaric paganism of their ancestors. The first Spanish missionaries who came to the Philippines were truly unselfish and dedicated martyrs of the faith. The Filipinos were won over by their virtues and by the gospel. Truly, the cross did more than the sword to win the easy conquest of the Philippines. Yan yung mga rason kung bakit nasakop tayo ng mga Espanyol. Dito po magtatapos ang The Other Expeditions of the Spaniards. Sana naman ay mayroon kayong natutunang muli dito sa Yam Heam Educamix TV 25. Thank you so much! Learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with ardor and attended to with diligence. Kaya nga may kasabihan na daig ng masisikap ang mga matatalino. Kaya magsikap po tayo para matapos po natin ang ating mga kurso. So again, thank you so much!
I'm gone.